Oh, excuse me. So we have some big news breaking according to ESPN. According to Adam Schefter, the Raiders are planning to suspend Antonio Brown. Yes, the saga continues. So breaking news here to CBS Sports HQ. The Raiders are planning to suspend receiver Antonio Brown. Apparently, Brown and general manager Mike Mayock got into an altercation Wednesday where I'm going to guess it's probably over Brown tweeting out the fine regarding him missing practice earlier in training camp. So here we go. You had the helmet situation, you had the foot situation, now we have a potential suspension where they thought they're going to show off their shiny new toy, and now Brown may not be able to play in Week 1 against the Broncos. So,
awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I
was in a draft last night. I was so excited to take Antonio Brown in round 3.
Did you?
I did.
How do you feel now?
Not so good, Jamey. Not so good at all.
The good thing is Dave and I have been having this little friendly sparring match over the last couple of weeks over Tyrell Williams or Darren Waller, and now we can both be right. There's plenty of room for both Williams and Waller to eat in this offense without Antonio Brown. Like it'll be interesting to find out. Are they going to suspend him for a half? Are they going to suspend him for a game? Are they going to suspend him for multiple weeks? What's going to happen? It's not been a very smooth start, obviously, for Antonio Brown in Oakland.
So this is according to Schefter. Brown posted the fine letter on social media, and Mike Mayock, it led to an exchange, which is now leading to further discipline. So again, like you said, it could be a half, it could be a quarter, it could be he's not starting, it could be the entire game, it could be for several games. You know, we don't know how this is going to unfold. And as we recall, when we had the saga situation going on, Mike Mayock came out to address the media, and he said, you're either all in or you're all out. Didn't take any questions. He seems to take a very hardline stand on how he's going to approach Antonio Brown. John Gruden, if you've watched Hard Knocks, you saw that he was very much in Antonio Brown's camp, wanting to make sure that he was comfortable and happy with the helmet. I mean, that was the biggest thing. You have to assume that John Gruden's on board with this, because otherwise they're not going to suspend him with a huge game, a division game in the AFC West against the Broncos. So, I guess for anybody that's drafting still, because we do have drafts going on, is Antonio Brown even still worth taking in the 3rd round?
No, 4th round.
I might still take him in late round 3, but it's got to be late. It's got to be right at the end of round 3.
Now you're building in one missed game potential.
I know, and I hope it's just one missed game. Really, what you've got to build into his value is there's more downside than there was before. And listen, there was a point where there seemed like there was a ton of downside, but he got his feet fixed and he got his helmet taken care of and everything was fine. And now it is another log on the fire. So maybe I'm wrong to say late round 3. Here's the deal, though. What if you've got Allen Robinson or Antonio Brown and you got to pick one of them?
Oh, you cannot. You have to.
You got to go with AB.
I mean,
or
Valdez-Scantling. You have to go Valdez-Scantling or Allison or Anthony Miller. Yeah, you have to.
If you don't have any other options.
Now, the other part of this, though, is, like we said, we don't know what the suspension is. It could be just for a quarter, a half. You're not starting. So we don't want to jump to conclusions yet, because, and again, it's the language coming from Schefter's tweet is planning to suspend. It's not necessarily he is suspended. This could just be we're slapping you on the wrist, we're going to publicly shame you, and then he comes back and he's just not starting the game forever, what that case may be. My biggest concern with him was always these things, because like you said, he got the foot thing taken care of. He got the helmet thing taken care of, and on top of that, he got an endorsement deal on top of that. But this was going to be, is the next thing that he's not happy about. Is it Derek Carr underthrowing him, overthrowing him? Is it John Gruden and the knock on wood, if you're with me, the rah-rah stuff that he may get annoyed with? The losing, because he's never really been in a prolonged losing situation. Yes, it happened to the Steelers last year, but as we know, the Steelers are typically perennial playoff contenders. And so will that start to bother him? If he's not getting the attention, will that start to bother him? And he starts to create attention, and now you see the fallout from it. I can't trust Antonio Brown. Like I said, when Mike Mayock said all in or all out, at that point for me, I was all out. And so, if you're still drafting round 3, if you want to take the chance on what could be still a special player, I get that. But for me, it's no. And this is just further evidence of what could still come. This is week 1. Training camp was an issue.
How does he react to this? How is he going to react to the suspension?
Absolutely.
Is he going to be a good soldier and say, okay, I did something wrong.
Sounds like him.
I promise to be good.
Okay.
Or is he going to do something
Let's talk a little bit more about the rest of the receiving corps. So Tyrell Williams is somebody you've been very, very fond of. How good does he become if, in fact, this is a one-game suspension? Would you start him against the Broncos? If it's a prolonged suspension and you're still drafting, does he move up your draft board even more? Or do people maybe just get to where you are?
If we find out tomorrow there's just no Antonio Brown for week 1 of the season, I'm starting Tyrell Williams against the Broncos. Because I think he's they're going to be behind in that game. They're going to have to throw it 35-plus times. They don't have other talented wide receivers on the team. Darren Waller might be the second option besides Jalen Richard in the passing game.
Well, let's go back to what they were a year ago, where it was, you can debate, and I know which side you'll come out on, but Jordy Nelson at that point in his career versus Tyrell Williams at this point in his career in conjunction with Jared Cook. And I don't think you're calling Darren Waller Jared Cook, but the opportunity is there for him to step into that role. And so if there is no Antonio Brown, can Waller, and let's not forget about Hunter Renfrow. I think they're going to lean on him
on top of that
quite a bit as a slot receiver. And so you have now these other pieces stepping up. It makes this offense completely terrible. But Josh Jacobs.
It's not good for him.
So what I'm thinking is if Antonio Brown is definitely out, we're going to see more of J.J. Nelson, who, again, not a player that anybody's going to be excited about, except maybe in DFS. He could be an interesting dart throw if he's there. But it's a lot of speed on the outside that's going to challenge the Broncos defense. And I wonder if that might be just good enough to get Josh Jacobs space off the line of scrimmage to get him some decent numbers.
And for what it's worth, they get good production. John Gruden did, the offense did, of the group of Marshawn Lynch at times, Doug Martin at times, Jalen Richard at times. And the hope would be that Josh Jacobs by himself can do what those three guys did. All right, we're going to talk a lot more about this Antonio Brown situation. Again, if you're just joining us, breaking news, according to ESPN, Antonio Brown, the Raiders are planning to suspend him. We don't know what that means. Week 1, multiple weeks, a quarter. We're going to find out more. Stay right here to CBS Sports HQ. Breaking news that we're talking about here on CBS Sports HQ, the Raiders planning to suspend Antonio Brown. Joining us now on Fantasy Football today is our 2-time Super Bowl winning quarterback, NFL analyst Bryant McFadden. So, B-Mac, you hear this news about Antonio Brown. We had the helmet. We had the feet. Now you have a potential suspension, and reports are that he got into an altercation with general manager Mike Mayock over the fine that they gave him regarding missing practice. What do you make of this whole situation?
He just can't get out of his own way. Again, another storyline not associated with the Oakland Raiders as far as playing football, in-game issues. I mean, AB, I don't know what the issue is. We know about the AB being absent throughout training camp because remember, they were a part of Hard Knocks, so we got a chance to really see, have a visual, also being able to hear what was going on. So they did what they were supposed to do. You didn't show up to practices or you missed a practice, you missed a meeting. You're supposed to get fined. So why do you feel like they did something they're not supposed to do? And then you made it public information by posting it and basically stating that your own team, they're hating on you. No, they're not hating on you. They're handling you like a professional, like any employer would do. You go out and you're supposed to do what you're supposed to do as far as showing up to meetings, showing up to practices, and you didn't do that. We all know about that. So if they fine you, don't take it serious. That's just that's part of the game. And I applaud the Raiders and their organization for handling him the way they did, because you have to treat AB just like any other player. If this was any other player, if this was a Vontaze Burfict if this was Doug Martin or whoever, any other experienced player on that roster, they should be fine, and the same goes for AB.
So we see here the timeline of events for Antonio Brown starting way back in March when they made the trade, Oakland and Pittsburgh, to acquire him. They traded to the Raiders 3rd and 5th round picks, to the Steelers, to get Antonio Brown. Then we go to August 7th. The feet are frostbitten from cryotherapy. I mean, I got to laugh. You can't even make it up. August 9th, he files the grievance over his helmet, threatens to retire, says he's never going to come back to play because he doesn't have the helmet that makes him feel comfortable. August 12th, confirms he will play. And then here we go, September 5th, the start of the 100th season for the NFL. Who's dominating headlines once again? It's Antonio Brown, as the Raiders reportedly plan to suspend him after an exchange with Mike Mayock. So, B-Mac, how do you see this really playing out? I mean, do you think it's going to be a quarter, a full game? Dave said that, based on the CBA, it could be 4 games that they could be, planning to suspend him. Do you think that they'd really go that far?
No, I don't think 4 games, but I wouldn't be surprised to see AB miss the entire ball game this weekend. They have to send a message. Look at this. I mean, that graphic there, the picture of the fine, and then, of course, AB putting a caption on that clearly tells you this guy does not get it. So for me, I can see the Raiders making him serve at least 1 game as far as being suspended, because enough is enough. They're tired of all these antics away from the game of football. They have supported him. Clearly, they were backing him with this whole helmet issue and his feet woes that he was dealing with. And now you get into an altercation with Mayock, a guy who has really been a supporting voice for what you've been going through. They really believe in you. So enough is enough. And I go out to say this, Jamey, I don't think AB will finish 2019 in a Raiders uniform.
Wow, so you think what, maybe suspended or cut?
I think they're either going to try
traded
to
or
cut
cut,
him, traded. I don't know if there's a team that will be willing to bring on a superstar player with the baggage he has following him as far as the distractions. And then secondly, remember, it's up to AB because we heard about potential rumors the Pittsburgh Steelers were thinking about trading him to the Buffalo Bills, and he basically said he wouldn't show up. So if AB is not being traded to a destination that he would prefer, we know he will threaten to walk away from the football game. He's done that multiple times already. And then cutting him, what will happen with the money? If the Raiders feel like there's a good chance they can recoup some of the money that he's entitled to receive, I would not be surprised to see the Oakland Raiders just cut ties because clearly he's become more of a distraction than a player that could really provide the impact that they thought he would provide.
Just an unbelievable story that's unfolding right now. Again, the Raiders planning to suspend star wide receiver Antonio Brown because of a reported altercation with general manager Mike Mayock. Joining us now on Fantasy Football Today to continue this discussion is Pick 6 podcast host Will Brinson. So, Will, give us your take. What do you think of when you see this news of Antonio Brown and the Raiders planning to suspend him?
Well, look, I didn't draft this clown lunatic in one of my fantasy leagues. I'm pretty excited about it. I mean, the frozen feet was scary enough. But you know that anytime Antonio Brown shows up, like, it doesn't matter if it's Pittsburgh or Oakland, Birmingham, Alabama, wherever it is, it's Crazy Town, USA. This guy has lost his mind. He's off his rocker. And if you read that letter from Mike Mayock that he sent to him, the fine letter that Antonio Brown posted, the last sentence said, we will take further action, I'm paraphrasing here, take further action based on the club's discipline. Oh, thank you. This is better. We'll take using the club's discipline schedule, the CBA, and your NFL player contract, including but not limited to additional fines and discipline for engaging in conduct detrimental to the club. Now, if you go and read Joel Corey, guys, he has pointed out that it does, in fact, allow the Raiders to go after the 2020 guarantee in Antonio Brown's contract if he violates the conduct detrimental to the club policy, which means that not only could we be looking at a situation where he is suspended 4 games and fined 4 games of game checks in 2019, but the Raiders could void all the future guarantees in his deal. I believe this is going to be the likely outcome, and I don't believe that Antonio Brown has one frozen leg to stand on because the stuff he's doing is absolutely nuts. It is very likely, in my opinion, that BMAC ends up being correct and that Antonio Brown is not on the Raiders in 2019. You can't do what he's doing and expect to remain with your employer in the long-term future. I think we could be seeing, as the season kicks off, the end of Antonio Brown's run in Oakland. One quick thing, and I'm not 100% sure how this works with the salary cap, and I don't know that anybody does, but if he's cut, he might count $55 million against the salary cap for 2 different teams, and he might not even be playing football.
It's just an unbelievable situation. Go ahead, B-Mac.
Yeah, I'm glad Will was able to really go inside the language of his contract because I think enough is enough. I think this organization, they're tired of his shenanigans. I think his teammates, they're tired of his shenanigans. And we know he's a superstar player, but everything that is following him, is it worth the risk? That's the issue. This team, I believe, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, this is a more talented team than year one with John Gruden as the head coach last year. And I think they do believe they have enough, even without AB, to be relevant, to be competitive, especially in the division. So like Will just mentioned, if there's an opportunity for them to recoup some of this money, I don't expect to see AB with the Oakland Raiders throughout 2019 because one thing about AB and the most consistent thing that we've seen with AB outside of his production on the football field, away from the football field, he is the same person. He hasn't slowed down any. I mean, it seems like his actions have intensified, and because of that, he's becoming very, very difficult to deal with.
Well, B-Mac, certainly we're going to talk a lot more about this coming up on CBS Sports HQ. Tyrell Williams, Darren Waller, for our purposes here on Fantasy Football Today, can really, really benefit, maybe even Hunter Renfrow. Bad news for Derek, the rest of the Raiders organization. For Heath, for Dave, I'm Jamey. Stay right here. Chris Hassel and Tommy Chan coming up for more on Antonio Brown.